Imagine stepping into a classroom full of alien students, all curious and a bit terrified of you, just because you're human. What happens when those same students realize that safety lessons don't apply to you, and they're about to find out why? Trust me, this isn't just another day at the Galactic Academy. From misunderstandings to chaos, you're about to witness how Earth's deathworlders change everything. Stay with me. You won't believe what happens next. The Galactic Intercultural Academy prided itself on being the most diverse educational institution in the known universe. Its hallways buzzed with a cacophony of languages, its classrooms filled with beings of all shapes, sizes, and states of matter. But even in this melting pot of intergalactic diversity, the arrival of a human exchange student had caused quite a stir. Zara Matthews stood at the entrance of the imposing crystalline structure, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a small covered cage clutched in her other hand. She took a deep breath, savouring the slightly metallic taste of the alien atmosphere. "Well, Whiskers," she muttered to the cage, "I guess this is it. Our grand adventure begins now." As if in response, a soft meow emanated from the cage. Zara squared her shoulders and marched through the shimmering force field that served as the Academy's front door. The atrium was a riot of colour and motion, with students of all species hurrying to and fro. A holographic map hovered in the centre, and Zara made her way towards it, trying not to gawk at the incredible variety of life forms around her. "Excuse me," she said to a floating orb of pulsating light. "Could you point me towards the administration office?" The orb flickered rapidly, and a melodious voice echoed in Zara's mind. "New student detected. Species, human. Threat level, extreme. Initiating safety protocols." Before Zara could protest, a shimmering bubble enveloped her, and she found herself being gently but firmly propelled down a corridor. The bubble deposited her in front of a door labelled Xenobiological Containment Integration. "Oh, for crying out loud," Zara grumbled. "I'm a student, not a biohazard." The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing an office that looked like a cross between a medical lab and a United Nations conference room. Behind a force-field-protected desk sat a being that resembled a sentient fern with eye stalks. "Ah, the human exchange student." The being rustled its leaves, quivering with what might have been excitement or fear. "I am Administrator Threshen. Welcome to the Galactic Intercultural Academy. We're so thrilled to have you join us." Zara stepped forward, extending her hand before remembering that handshakes might not be universal. She awkwardly lowered it. "Thank you, Administrator. I'm Zara Matthews. I'm really excited to be here." Threshen's eye stalk swiveled to focus on the cage in Zara's hand. "And what, may I ask, is that?" "Oh, this." Zara lifted the cage. "This is my cat, Whiskers. I was told pets were allowed in the dormitories." The administrator's leaves rustled in alarm. "A predator. You've brought a predator into our academic sanctuary." Zara blinked in surprise. "Whiskers, he's harmless. He's just a regular house cat." "I see," Threshen said, not sounding convinced at all. "Well, Miss Matthews, while we do indeed allow pets, we'll need to run some tests to ensure your Whiskers is safe to be around other students. In the meantime, let's get you settled in your dormitory and go over your class schedule." After a whirlwind of paperwork, safety briefings, most of which seemed to be about protecting others from her rather than the other way around, and a rather invasive decontamination process, Zara finally found herself in her new room. It was a simple space with adapted furniture that could reconfigure itself to suit various alien physiologies. Zara set Whiskers' cage down and opened it. The fluffy white cat sauntered out, looking around the room with typical feline disdain. "Well, buddy," Zara sighed, flopping onto the morphing bed, "I think we've got our work cut out for us." The next morning, Zara made her way to her first class. Interspecies Ethics and Etiquette. She entered the classroom to find a diverse array of beings already seated. As soon as she stepped in, a hush fell over the room. The professor, a towering mass of tentacles and eye stalks, cleared what passed for its throat. "Ah, you must be our new student. Please introduce yourself to the class." Zara walked to the front, acutely aware of the way some students leaned away from her as she passed. "Hi, everyone. I'm Zara Matthews from Earth. I'm really looking forward to learning about all your cultures." A brave soul in the back raised her appendage. "Is it true that humans eat other life forms?" Zara blinked. "Well, yes. We're omnivores, but so are many species, right?" The classroom erupted into a flurry of horrified whispers and alarmed clicks and whistles. Now, the professor intervened. "Let's not jump to conclusions. I'm sure Miss Matthews doesn't mean any harm. Please take your seat, and we'll begin our lesson on the importance of non-judgmental observation in interspecies interactions." As Zara made her way to an empty seat, she couldn't help but notice that the nearest students subtly shifted their desks away from her. The next few days passed in a blur of classes, cultural misunderstandings, and increasingly ridiculous rumors about human biology. Zara overheard one student claiming that humans could regrow lost limbs, while another insisted that human saliva could melt through starship hulls. It all came to a head during her xenobiology class. Professor Zills, a gelatinous cube with floating organs, was discussing the diversity of life in the galaxy. "And that brings us to our next exciting announcement," Zills burbled enthusiastically. "Tomorrow is our annual Bring Your Pet to Class Day. It's a wonderful opportunity to showcase the diversity of companion species across the galaxy. Everyone is encouraged to participate." Zara's hand shot up. "Professor Zills, would it be all right if I brought my cat, Whiskers?" The class fell silent. Zills's organs swirled in what might have been confusion. "Your cat. Is that the Earth predator you mentioned during orientation?" "Yes, but he's completely harmless," Zara assured him. "He's just a regular house cat. Very friendly." Zills's gelatinous form rippled thoughtfully. "Well, in the spirit of cultural exchange, I suppose it would be educational. Just ensure that your cat is properly restrained." The next day, Zara arrived at class with Whiskers in his carrier. The other students had brought an assortment of bizarre creatures, levitating crystals that hummed soothing melodies, amorphous blobs that changed color based on their owner's moods, and even a miniature black hole contained in a special field. Apparently, it made a great garbage disposal. "All right, class," Professor Zills announced. "Let us begin our presentations. Who would like to go first?" Before anyone could volunteer, Zara's hand shot up. "I'd be happy to start, Professor." The class fell silent, a mix of curiosity and apprehension filling the air. Zara walked to the front of the room, carrying Whiskers' carrier. "Fellow classmates," she began, her voice filled with enthusiasm, "I'd like to introduce you to a common Earth pet. This is Whiskers, my cat." With a flourish, she opened the carrier. Whiskers sauntered out, his fluffy white tail held high. He looked around the classroom with typical feline indifference. The reaction was instantaneous and chaotic. A crystalline being in the front row shattered into 1,000 pieces, each shard pulsing with alarm. A gaseous student condensed into a tight ball, trying to make itself as small as possible. One of Zills's organs actually fainted, floating limply in his gelatinous body while the others darted around in panic. Now, Zara said, trying to sound reassuring but failing to hide her bewilderment at their reaction. "There's no need to be afraid. Whiskers is completely harmless." "Harmless," squeaked a small, furry alien named Blore. "But it has so many teeth and claws and fur." Zara nodded, not sure whether to be amused or concerned. "Yes, the fur is very important. It helps him regulate his body temperature, and the teeth and claws are just for self-defense. He's really a sweetie." This information did not have the calming effect Zara had hoped for. If anything, the panic in the room increased tenfold. Self-defense, shrieked another student, a hovering mass of tentacles. You mean it fights voluntarily? Well, not really, Zara tried to explain. He's domesticated. Mostly, he just sleeps and plays with toys. Toys. Blore whispered in horror. It practices combat. Zara was about to protest when Whiskers, apparently bored with all the commotion, decided to start grooming himself. He sat down, lifted a back leg, and began enthusiastically licking his nether regions. The class watched in horrified fascination. By the galactic core, someone muttered, It's dislocating its own limbs for sustenance. What? No, Zara exclaimed. He's just cleaning himself. It's perfectly normal cat behavior. It ingests its own filth as a survival mechanism. Professor Zills burbled, his organs swirling in a mix of disgust and academic interest. Fascinating, the lengths Earth creatures go to for survival. Truly remarkable. Whiskers, finished with his grooming, stood up and stretched languidly, his mouth opening in a wide yawn, showcasing his impressive array of teeth. The classroom erupted into chaos. Students were climbing over each other to get to the exits. Blore had somehow managed to squeeze himself into a pencil case. The mini black hole's containment field was fluctuating wildly, threatening to suck in half the classroom's furniture. Wait, Zara called out, scooping up Whiskers. You don't understand. He's friendly. Look. She held Whiskers up, Lion King style, hoping his cute face would calm everyone down. Instead, Whiskers chose that moment to let out a loud, rumbling purr. It's activating its attack vibration, someone screeched. The evacuation reached a new level of frenzy. Even Professor Zills was oozing towards the door at an alarming speed. Miss Matthews, the professor's voice quavered, I think that's quite enough for today. Perhaps it would be best if you contained your creature and left the premises immediately. Zara looked around the room, taking in the scene of utter chaos she had unintentionally created. Blore was still trying to hide in the pencil case, though now he seemed to be attempting to squeeze himself out through the sharpener hole. The mini black hole had actually sucked up several chairs and was looking decidedly larger. The few remaining students were pressed against the far wall, their various appendages raised in defensive postures. But Professor, Zara said, her voice a mix of confusion and frustration, I haven't even shown them how Whiskers plays with a laser pointer yet. It's really quite cute. That was the final straw. At the mention of lasers, the classroom emptied in record time, leaving behind only Zara, Whiskers, and a very flustered Professor Zills. Miss Matthews, the professor said, his voice a mix of awe and exasperation, I believe you've just set a new record for the fastest evacuation of a classroom in the history of this institution. Zara sighed, absently scratching Whiskers behind the ears. The cat purred contentedly, oblivious to the chaos he had caused. I'm sorry, Professor, Zara said. I really didn't mean to cause such a disruption. On Earth, cats are considered one of the least threatening pets you can have. Zills's organs swirled thoughtfully. Perhaps this is a valuable lesson in interspecies perspectives. What seems harmless to one culture may be terrifying to another. He paused, then added hastily, though I must admit, I'm curious. What do humans consider to be dangerous pets, if this is a harmless one? Zara thought for a moment. Well, some people keep snakes or large dogs, or even exotic animals like tigers or bears, but those are pretty rare. The professor's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been a shudder. I think perhaps we should reconsider the pet day tradition, or at least make some species-specific exceptions. I'm really sorry about all this, Zara said, feeling a mix of embarrassment and frustration. I was hoping this would be a good way to share a bit of Earth culture, not terrify everyone. Zills's form softened slightly. Your intentions were admirable, Miss Matthews. Perhaps we can find a less startling way to introduce your classmates to Earth fauna. Maybe start with something less alive. A stuffed replica, perhaps. Zara nodded, an idea forming. Actually, Professor, I think I have just the thing. Would it be all right if I tried again tomorrow? I promise no living creatures this time. Zills hesitated, his organs swirling uncertainly. Well, I suppose, in the spirit of intellectual curiosity and cultural exchange, we could give it another try. But please, Ms. Matthews, nothing that could be considered a weapon or a predator, or, well, perhaps it's best if you run your idea by me first. Zara grinned. Don't worry, Professor. I think I know just how to turn this around. The next day, the classroom was abuzz with nervous energy. Students filed in cautiously, many equipped with personal force fields or hiding behind protective bubbles. Zara stood at the front of the class, a large covered object on the desk beside her. All right, everyone, Professor Zills burbled, his gelatinous form rippling with what might have been nervousness. Miss Matthews has kindly agreed to give her presentation another try. I assure you, there are no living Earth creatures present this time. Miss Matthews, whenever you're ready. Zara took a deep breath and smiled at her classmates. Thank you all for giving me another chance. I realize now that I should have been more considerate of how different our cultures are. So today, I'd like to introduce you to something that I think will help bridge that gap. She pulled the cover off the object, revealing a large, colourful book. This is called a picture book. On Earth, we use these to teach children about the world around them. This particular book is all about cats. A ripple of nervous murmurs spread through the class. Blore, who had finally extracted himself from the pencil case, squeaked in alarm. But don't worry, Zara reassured them. It's just images and information, no real cats involved. I thought this might be a gentle way to introduce you to Earth pets. She opened the book, revealing a large, colourful illustration of a kitten playing with a ball of yarn. Zara opened the book, revealing a large, colourful illustration of a kitten playing with a ball of yarn. This is what we call a kitten. It's a baby cat. To her surprise and relief, several students leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused on the image with curiosity rather than fear. It appears to be tangled in some form of fibre. One student, a hovering cloud of sparkling mist, asked tentatively. Zara chuckled. That's yarn. It's not tangled. The kitten is playing with it. On Earth, we give cats toys to play with. It helps them exercise and keeps them entertained. She turned the page, showing a series of images depicting the life cycle of a cat. Cats start out very small and helpless, but they grow quickly. They learn to hunt and play from their mothers. Hunt. Blore squeaked, his gelatinous form quivering. Well, yes, Zara admitted. But domestic cats like Whiskers don't need to hunt. We provide them with food. The hunting instinct mostly comes out as play. She continued through the book, explaining various aspects of cat behaviour, their role in Earth history, carefully skirting around the gods of ancient Egypt to avoid further confusion, and their place in human households. To her surprise, the class began to show genuine interest. Questions started pouring in, ranging from curious to bizarre. Do these cats assist in human reproduction rituals? Asked a crystalline being, its facets shimmering with curiosity. Zara nearly choked on her own laughter. No. They're just companions, though some humans do treat their pets like children. Fascinating. Professor Zills interjected, his organs swirling excitedly. A non-sentient species raised as offspring. The implications for xenopsychology are staggering. As Zara continued her presentation, she noticed a gradual shift in the classroom's atmosphere. The force fields started to lower, the protective bubbles dissipated, and students began to lean in with genuine curiosity. And this, Zara said, turning to the final page, is what we call the internet cat video phenomenon. Humans spend an inordinate amount of time watching and sharing videos of cats doing silly things. The image showed a compilation of classic cat memes and screenshots from famous cat videos. The class erupted into a cacophony of curious chirps, whistles, and bubbling sounds. You mean to say a plant-like student with shimmering leaves asked that your species dedicates significant resources to observing and documenting the activities of these non-sentient companions? Zara nodded, grinning. Oh yes, there are entire websites dedicated to nothing but cat pictures and videos. The classroom buzzed with excited discussion. Even Blore, who had spent most of the class half hidden behind his desk, was now peering at the book with interest. Miss Matthews, Professor Zills burbled, his gelatinous form practically vibrating with excitement. I believe you've stumbled upon a fascinating area of study. The role of companion species in human culture could provide invaluable insights into Earth's society. Zara beamed, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Thank you, Professor. I'm glad I could share this part of Earth culture with everyone. As the class filed out, chattering excitedly about what they'd learned, Blore approached Zara hesitantly. Zara, he bubbled nervously, I was wondering, do you think maybe I could see Whiskers again? From a safe distance, of course. Maybe behind a force field. It's just, now that I understand more about cats, I'm curious. Zara's face lit up. Of course, Blore. How about we set up a controlled meet and greet session? We could invite anyone who's interested. Word of Zara's cat exhibition spread through the academy like wildfire. By the end of the week, a sizable crowd had gathered in one of the larger lecture halls, all eager to see the infamous Earth cat up close. Zara stood on the stage, Whiskers contentedly purring in her arms. A shimmering force field separated them from the audience, more for the spectators' peace of mind than any real need for protection. All right, everyone, Zara announced. This is Whiskers. As you can see, he's not nearly as terrifying as you might have thought. He's actually quite lazy most of the time. As if to prove her point, Whiskers yawned widely, showcasing his impressive array of teeth. A collective gasp went through the audience, followed by murmurs of fascination rather than fear. Now, I'm going to demonstrate some typical cat behaviors, Zara continued. She set Whiskers down and pulled out a small laser pointer. This is one of Whiskers' favorite toys. She clicked the pointer on, creating a small red dot on the floor. Whiskers immediately pounced, chasing the dot as Zara moved it around. The audience watched in rapt attention, some even taking notes. Remarkable, a multi-eyed floating orb commented. It appears to be practicing hunting techniques, yet it shows no signs of actual aggression. Most intriguing. For the next hour, Zara fielded questions, demonstrated various cat toys, and even let a few brave souls pet Whiskers through a specially designed force field glove. By the end of the session, the mood had shifted dramatically from fear to fascination. As the crowd dispersed, Professor Zills approached Zara, his gelatinous form rippling with what she had come to recognize as excitement. Miss Matthews, he burbled, I must commend you on your handling of this situation. You've turned what could have been a diplomatic disaster into a valuable learning experience for all of us. Zara smiled, scratching Whiskers behind the ears. Thank you, Professor. I'm just glad everyone's starting to see that humans and our pets aren't so scary after all. Indeed, Zills agreed. In fact, I've been thinking, how would you feel about teaching a seminar on Earth fauna and its cultural significance? I believe many students would be quite interested, especially after today's demonstration. Zara's eyes widened in surprise and delight. I'd be honored, Professor. There's so much more I could share about Earth's animals and our relationships with them. Excellent, Zills's organs swirl happily. We'll set it up for next semester. Oh, and Miss Matthews, perhaps we could start with something a bit less predatory than cats. I believe I recall you mentioning something called a goldfish. Zara laughed. Sure thing, Professor. Though I should warn you, wait until they hear about how often goldfish need their water changed. They might think we're torturing them." As the professor and Zara walked out of the lecture hall, Zara felt a sense of accomplishment. She had come to the Galactic Intercultural Academy, hoping to learn about alien cultures, but she had ended up teaching as much as she was learning. It was a reminder that cultural exchange was a two-way street, full of misunderstandings, surprises, and moments of connection. Back in her dorm room, Zara flopped onto her bed, whiskers curling up beside her. "Well, buddy," she said, stroking his fur, "I think we're going to fit in here just fine. Though maybe next time I'll leave the laser pointer at home. I'm not sure the campus is ready for the concept of catnip just yet." Whiskers purred contentedly, oblivious to his newfound celebrity status as the Academy's first officially recognized Earth predator. As Zara drifted off to sleep, she couldn't help but smile at the thought of her next class. She had a feeling that Introductory Human Studies, the phenomenon of dog parks, was going to be quite the hit. In the days that followed, Zara noticed a marked change in how her fellow students interacted with her. The fear and apprehension had been replaced by curiosity and an eagerness to learn more about Earth and its inhabitants. She found herself fielding questions about everything from human dietary habits to Earth's diverse ecosystems. One particularly memorable incident occurred in the Academy's cafeteria. Zara was enjoying her lunch, a specially prepared Earth-compatible meal, when a group of students from her xenobiology class approached her table. Zara, one of them, a bioluminescent creature named Lux, pulsed hesitantly. "We were wondering, is it true that humans consume parts of other life forms for sustenance?" Zara swallowed her bite of synthesized chicken salad, considering how to approach this delicate topic. "Well, yes," she began carefully. "Humans are omnivorous, which means we eat both plant and animal matter. But we've also developed alternatives, like this synthesized food I'm eating now." The group leaned in, their various sensory organs focused intently on her plate. "Fascinating," chirped Blore, who had become one of Zara's most enthusiastic supporters since the cat incident. "And this doesn't cause you any distress?" Zara shook her head. "Not at all. It's perfectly normal for us. Though I understand why it might seem strange to species with different biological needs." This led to a lively discussion about the diverse dietary requirements of different species across the galaxy. Zara found herself learning as much as she was teaching, hearing about crystalline beings who absorbed energy directly from stars, and gaseous entities who consumed complex mathematics as sustenance. As the semester progressed, Zara's impromptu Earth culture lessons became a regular occurrence. She introduced her classmates to concepts like weather. The idea of water falling from the sky was particularly alarming to some. Seasons, the notion of a planet's entire ecosystem changing cyclically, was mind-boggling. And even human sports, the concept of voluntarily engaging in physically strenuous activities for fun, was met with both fascination and horror. One day, during a class on interstellar diplomacy, the professor, a towering multi-limbed being named Ambassador Zix, posed a question to the class. In light of our recent cultural exchanges, Zix's melodious voice resonated. How might we approach diplomatic relations with a species like humans, whose biology and culture differ so drastically from the galactic norm? The class fell silent, various appendages and sensory organs twitching thoughtfully. Then, to everyone's surprise, Blore's gelatinous form quivered as he raised a pseudopod. "Perhaps," he bubbled nervously, "we should approach it with curiosity rather than fear, like Zara did with us. She didn't get angry when we were afraid of her cat. Instead, she found a way to help us understand." Zara felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with Earth's higher cold body temperature. Ambassador Zix's appendages waved in approval. "An excellent point, Blore. Understanding and adaptation are key in any diplomatic endeavor." As the class continued, Zara found herself reflecting on how far they'd all come, from the initial panic over Whiskers to now discussing human diplomacy as equals. It was more progress than she could have hoped for. The semester's end brought with it the Academy's annual Cultural Exchange Festival. Each student was encouraged to share an aspect of their home culture with the rest of the school. Naturally, Zara decided to focus on Earth's relationship with its animal companions. She set up a booth filled with images and holographic projections of various Earth pets: dogs, cats, birds, fish, and even some more exotic choices like bearded dragons and hedgehogs. To her delight, her booth quickly became one of the most popular at the festival. Students crowded around, asking questions and marveling at the diversity of Earth's companion animals. Zara found herself explaining concepts like fetch, purring, and aquariums to an increasingly fascinated audience. "But why?" asked a silicon-based student named Crystal, her facets shimmering with confusion. "Do humans choose to cohabitate with these non-sentient species?" Zara smiled, realizing how strange the concept must seem to beings from worlds where most life forms were sentient, or at least semi-sentient. "Well, it's a complex relationship," she explained. "These animals provide companionship, emotional support, and even practical assistance in some cases. Many humans form deep emotional bonds with their pets." This led to a discussion about the nature of intelligence and consciousness that lasted well into the night, with students from various species offering their own planet's perspectives on the matter. As the festival wound down, Professor Zills approached Zara's booth, his gelatinous form shimmering with what she had come to recognize as pride. "Miss Matthews," he burbled, "I must say, your contributions to this academy have been nothing short of revolutionary. You've not only adapted to our environment, but have helped us adapt to the idea of yours. It's precisely this kind of mutual understanding that the Galactic Intercultural Academy strives to foster." Zara felt a lump form in her throat. "Thank you, Professor. That means a lot to me. I've learned so much here, and I'm glad I could share a bit of Earth in return." "Indeed," Zills continued, his organs swirling thoughtfully. "In fact, the board and I have been discussing the possibility of expanding our Earth Studies program. We were hoping you might consider staying on after your exchange period to help develop the curriculum." Zara's eyes widened in surprise and delight. "Are you serious? I'd be honored." As she began to discuss the possibilities with Zills, Zara couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come, from a terrified classroom fleeing from a house cat to a serious academic discussion about expanding Earth studies. It was more than she could have ever hoped for when she first arrived. That night, as she sat in her dorm room, Whiskers purring contentedly in her lap, Zara reflected on her journey. She had come to the Galactic Intercultural Academy to learn about alien cultures, but in the process, she had become an ambassador for her own world. She glanced at her datapad, smiling at the list of proposed courses for the new Earth Studies program: Introduction to Earth Ecosystems, Human Social Structures and Cultures, Earth Arts and Entertainment. She was particularly looking forward to explaining the concept of movies to her alien friends. And even practical Earthology, understanding and interacting with non-sentient companions. As Zara scratched Whiskers behind the ears, she couldn't help but chuckle. "Well, buddy," she murmured to the cat, "looks like we're going to be here for a while. Think you're up for being a teaching assistant?" Whiskers responded with a languid yawn and stretched out across her datapad as if to say, "I've already done my part. You handle the teaching, I'll handle the naps." Zara laughed, gently moving the cat so she could continue her work. As she did, she caught sight of the small Earth globe on her desk, a reminder of the home that now felt simultaneously so far away and so present in her daily life here at the Academy. She had come to the stars to learn, but in the process she had become a teacher. It wasn't the journey she had expected, But as she looked out her window at the alien constellations, Zara realized it was exactly where she was meant to be. The future stretched out before her, filled with the promise of more misunderstandings to navigate, more cultural barriers to break down, and more moments of connection to cherish. And it all started with a simple house cat and a classroom full of terrified alien students. Zara smiled to herself. If this was what she could accomplish in one semester with one cat, she couldn't wait to see what the future held. After all, she hadn't even introduced them to dogs yet. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Zara's dreams were filled with images of alien students cuddling with Earth puppies, of interstellar cultural exchanges, and of a galaxy brought closer together by the simple act of sharing and understanding. It was a future worth working towards, one purr, bark, and confused alien face at a time. And there you have it. What started as a simple class turned into the wildest lesson these alien students will never forget. But that's just the beginning. If this is how aliens react to our pets and safety rules, imagine what happens when they meet our more dangerous companions. Want to know more? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter of this intergalactic adventure. Until then, remember, sometimes the scariest creatures in the galaxy are the ones with the softest fur.